wanderlust, but she ain't seen the world so much to do at 21. You feel invincible, so hard to find someone to trust. She's still a daddy.
Hey guys, welcome to a video that a lot of you have been waiting for. What I'm going to do is go through all the questions that you guys have been asking. It's a property development Q&A. I don't know how many questions are submitting, but there was something like 400 comments on the first video, 300 or 400 on the second one. What we've done is we've broken the questions down, selected the ones that are not doubling up so that we're answering everybody's questions, and taking the ones that you guys liked or commented on the most, because those are the most important ones. So I've got Cal behind the camera, and Cal is going to read out the questions and I'm going to answer them for you. We are currently sitting in Mayfair Pizza Company, which is a really cool restaurant in the heart of Mayfair. It's down a really cool little alley, and they've got like a couple of restaurants, they've got a bar downstairs, and we're going to get some cool food as well while we're here. So I want to be doing some more food stuff as well. So I thought a nice way to break up a Q&A video is to have some nice food while we're here, plus I'm starving. Just come back from Lamborghini and we've been running around a Bentley, which you would have seen in the vlog video, and we are now going to hopefully answer some questions. So Cal, if you want to start reading them for me.
Do you need a license to become a property developer?
So no, you don't need a license to become a property developer. You don't actually, and another question was, do you need a qualification? You don't need any qualifications. Some qualifications that you may be interested in could be like doing something that's a chartered surveyor's course, which means that you can essentially go to properties and assess them structurally to see whether you think they're in good condition or not. And when you're buying properties in different ways, you need to make those assessments. Yes, there are surveys and people that you can pay to get that done, but if there's any qualification that I would recommend doing, a chartered surveyor course.
How do you evaluate which property to buy and where do you see potential in it?
So I think everybody knows that the most important thing with property is location, location, location. Especially in the UK, but this applies to everything else and different countries, just like you've seen I'm doing developments in other countries. You have to focus on locations where money is essentially being spent. Now, the most important places where money is being spent is usually where there's some sort of education base to it. So if there's a university town, that's a fantastic place to have a property because rental figures will tend to be a little bit higher because you have students renting. If you're in the cities where there's a lot of jobs, where a lot of people are working, again, that's another place that is good to invest. Also, when companies, especially big companies, move, and here's a prime example, in London, big companies like investment banking companies moved up north into areas like Birmingham and Manchester. They bring a lot of jobs with them, and with that you need properties and you need houses. So those are really good places to do. So that's the kind of the ways that I assess, but mainly looking about where investment is being put into an area. If the government is going to put a lot of investment into an area, that means it's a good place to invest.
Is there a way to do real estate investments on a budget, say under 10k?
So this is a really popular question, and I know there's another one later on I think that I've read that's in a similar way. It's kind of how to enter into the property market when you don't have a lot of money to invest. There is actually ways to enter the property market, and it's things that I've done in the past. So if you don't have a huge amount of money, you obviously can't necessarily buy a property because you can't get a loan or whatever that might be that you're using to purchase it. But there are ways to invest by putting small amounts of money and actually essentially owning parts of, say, a land or a property. So if you imagine you're actually buying shares in a company that owns, say, one house, and if that house is, say, £100,000 or $100,000, whatever currency it is that we're talking about, you can, say, purchase £20,000 equivalent of that £100,000, and then you own a fifth of that property. So there are ways to enter the market in that way. Now, you can buy smaller amounts, or you can buy more if you want. So you can own 50% ownership, 20% ownership, 10%, and in some instances only one. It's a great way of getting into bigger developments. How do you get out of those? All you do is sell your shares equivalent, and you get your money back. If the property price has gone up, then of course you get more money back. If it's gone down, you get less back. But there are ways, of course, like that, and many other ways as well, where you can enter the market with not a lot of money.
Tips on applying for planning permission when building houses or apartments?
So that's a really good question. Now, it's probably the most important thing when you're developing, knowing that you can essentially secure planning permission. You can buy some sites or existing properties with existing planning permission, but the best way, and I talk about this actually in something which I'm going to mention to you in a property seminar that I do where people can learn, but what you can do is you can speak to architects before you actually buy into a project. So you can speak to architects and say to them, listen, do you think I can get it on? Can I get planning permission on this? And they'll give you an idea because they're connected with the councils or whoever it is that's going to be issuing the planning permission, and they can give you the idea to say whether you think you can get it or you can't. Now, just to mention it there, just so you know, I know there's a lot of people who are interested in learning about property development or even property investment. I'm going to put a link in the description below to get some more details on a property seminar that I teach. Now, I've done a few of these seminars before. They were massively oversubscribed, and I know, obviously, announcing it here, there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in this. So if you follow the link, the details will be there. I would recommend booking your slot as soon as possible, but hopefully what I'm going to do is try and do a few more, because I like to keep the group small, meaning that if I do a property seminar, there can only be maybe like 20 or 25 people in the room. It means that you can actually interact with people more, you can get a lot more questions covered. For the people who are not obviously in the UK or in London, if you want to do it from abroad, it's a live video feed. So all you need to do is once you've kind of bought your spot, all you'll get in an email is a link to how to sign on to the live webinar, and then there's a little kind of code that you need to enter, and then you'll have live access. And it's just like being in the room, you can ask me questions. But yeah, more on that a little bit later as well.
Where did you gain your knowledge on property developing?
So my knowledge came from a lot of reading. It's a question that's asked me, especially even about trading as well. Where did I get that information? I spent a lot of time when I was young reading, and a lot of things that I used to do was read through articles talking about where were great places to invest. When it came to development, I started to learn those things as I went along. And the information is out there, it just takes a lot of time to kind of gather it together, which is why in the seminar I try and close it in, so it's information that you can find out there, and I'd recommend if people want to put in a lot of time, they can do it. But what I did was I used to look through a lot of things like auctions, I used to go and speak to a lot of agents, I used to go to property viewings, even if I wasn't necessarily interested in buying the property, just to get an insight of what's there on the market. And I went to auctions even though I wasn't buying, and I started to read, really important thing was I started to read legal packs telling me about what the property and all the kind of stipulation that comes with it, and having to understand that, because when you want to buy properties, you have to usually give the legal pack essentially to deal with a solicitor. So the solicitor will deal with everything for you. That can cost a lot of money. I learned to taught myself how to read those legal packs, so that only on the ones that I was really specifically going to buy, those are the ones that I then go over to the solicitor to them to do all the bits they need to do.
With the new law coming into effect of taxing people if they own multiple properties, how will you adjust your business, if at all?
So for people who are obviously in the UK, there's new laws that are coming in all the time, and also in the US I know there's new laws in Kenya, a lot of new laws coming out in Eastern Europe as well with regards to property and investment. There are certain things that are coming out that are saying that, you know, if you own multiple properties you're going to get taxed more. If you own a rental property, you're actually going to get, you're not going to be able to put in, say, your mortgage payments to offset it so that you can pay less tax. But there are ways around this in terms of structuring things in a company. It's a little bit more complicated, but when you do own multiple properties, it's worth doing. If you just have a few, it's not going to make much of a difference, but there are ways around it and that you can manage it. So I will just be I'd set things up in a structure before, but you just kind of tweak things on a business side to get to that point.
Referring to the Kenya video, who will buy this type of property in Kenya?
So that's an interesting question for somebody to ask about that. I mean, I can understand that people's perception is that if you're talking about a third world country like Kenya, that people necessarily wouldn't have the money to buy. But actually, there's a huge amount of money now being invested in Kenya by foreign countries. I actually know large investment banks who are creating even platforms to trade African currencies. There's a lot of things that are going on in relation to gold being found in certain mines in certain areas. They've actually struck oil in a lot of places, so there's a lot of money in the area. The developments speak for themselves. The previous development done sold out within just a couple of days, and even this development now, the investment that's come in from even the Middle East, people are buying in because they see it as a great return in terms of your rental and everything else.
What job did you have before property development?
So the job I had before property development was actually in investment banking. I worked for a company called RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, and out of university I'd gone into investment banking. So that's the job that I did before. I think people know a lot about investment banking, they know about the money that's involved. It's not always what you think, but I'd set myself up to essentially leave before I'd even started the job by trying to do other things. But that's the job that I used to do before, was in investment banking.
Do you have any jobs going?
At the moment, there's nothing going, but there is something that's coming up. So my email is on the bottom of the screen, and it's going to be in the description as well. So my email is going to be at the bottom of the screen and description as well. Email me if you're interested in anything related to property, and there might be something coming up, especially internships as well for people who want to learn.
Do you take a loan or do you have investors?
At the moment, I do not take loans. It's money that I built up from other investments. However, in order to do the larger projects, for the ones that you've seen, so the newer ones, like the ones in Kenya, there are loan agreements that are now structured based on people buying at the time, so that money can essentially come in. So people will buy off plan, and then you can sometimes use that money to fund it. But otherwise, there are loan facilities in place in order to cover certain shortfalls when you get to different points of the development.
What's your time frame on flipping a property?
It's really important as well to have a plan before you start. So the time frames depends on the project itself. The project that I showed that I was doing when I was converting into 4 flats, that can be anything from 6 months to 12 months. The project that's in Kenya is about 2.5 to 3 years, but it really depends. I've done previous projects with small flats and they can take even just a week or two, but it depends on the project itself.
Did you create your own team of builders, or do you rely on established companies to help renovate?
So there was an established company who'd done previous work for me before, and then because their work quality was good and they were trustworthy builders, I brought them on, and they're now like a full-time team who work on project to project and move from different place to different place.
I'd be interested to know your mistakes, if any, that you've made when starting out and investing in property.
I've made mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes. I wouldn't say that there have been mistakes that have cost me a lot of money, but they have cost me time. So when you start developing, and here's just a prime example, when you convert a property like the one that you've seen in the previous video, where I've converted it into 4 flats, you have to imagine that when it's a house originally, it's only got one connection, and the connection is a gas connection, an electricity connection, and of course a water connection. But when you're converting into 4 flats, you have to separate those so they have their own individual water connection if you don't want to put it on certain meters. So when you do that, you have to contact the companies, of course, that are going to do that. Those are external companies. What I found out was that when you submit an application, it actually takes a long period of time before they actually come out and start doing the work. So for that reason, it cost me some time, but in the end I learned going on to the next project, but it was a mistake at the time. Right, that's enough questions for now, because I'm hungry, it's time to eat. Some crazy food coming. I told you, we are at Mayfair Pizza Company. So, let's see the food. So a lot of people say I don't smile that much, but when I have food in front of me, I smile a lot. As I told you before, we're down at Mayfair Pizza Company. Check them out here. We've got some incredible food. This is some new stuff that's coming on the menu, I believe, on Friday. Chef Michael has told me. But just to let you know what we've got here. So this is a lobster bisque linguine with some caviar in it as well. On the left here, we have got calamari with a paprika mayonnaise. In front of me here, we've got potato croquettes, and we've got these arancini balls, which are amazing if you haven't had them before, like risotto with melted cheese inside. It's amazing. In front over here, we've got a chicken pizza, which Cal always orders. And we've also got this amazing salad over here that's kind of like a pappardelle pasta with some rocket leaves, avocado, and most importantly, for people who are particular on this stuff or can't, a lot of this stuff is gluten free. So they've got a huge range of dishes here, amazing pizzas, and surprisingly for where it is in the heart of Mayfair, it's really good value for money. And for a drink, I've got a virgin mojito. Amazing, cheers. Definitely check them out. Let's take a closer look at the food.
Say that she a wanderlust, but she ain't seen the world so much to do at 21. You feel invincible, so hard to find someone to trust. She's still a daddy's girl, she wanna be an actress and a singer like Selena. And she a movie buff, but she ain't seen Breakfast at Tiffany's or Breakfast Club. That's just before her time, so hard to keep.
So it's literally about 5 minutes later, and we are demolishing the food. This lobster pasta is amazing. Salad is so light and fresh, amazing for the summer. I know summer's gone now, but if you want something healthy and nice, that is really, really good. We love these. These arancini balls they're so good. It's like a truffle arancini. I shouldn't talk with my mouth full. It's like a truffle arancini risotto. Cal, how was your pizza? Yeah, I think that's how it was. So we're gonna get back to demolishing the food, and then straight onto the Q&As. Right, we just finished eating, and before I fall asleep into a food coma, let's get on with the rest of the questions. So Cal, what's next?
What ROI percentage are you looking at on deals?
So ROI, for people who don't know, is return on investment. It depends, again, on the project that you're doing, but as a developer, you look to make around about 25% profit on each project. So if you're working with those figures, you're doing pretty well. But understand in different markets, there's going to be different levels, so 25% is kind of the figure you work with.
How many projects do you usually have at one time?
I usually have about 2 or 3 projects going on at one time. But the most important thing is not how many you've got running at one time, it's making sure that you've got one to go into next. With property development, you want to make sure that there's as little gaps as possible. That comes to whether you're renting a property as well, you want to make sure that there's the gaps in between tenancies are shortened. You need consistency going forward, and because it's a difficult market, usually I have other projects lined up. So right now, even though I have a couple running, there are 2 already lined up which we're going to go into straight afterwards.
What rims are on your Range Rover from the first property video?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. People asking about the car. The rims on there are 23-inch Phantoms. I think I talked about it in my SVR review video, so check it out.
Can't he afford to buy a van?
I could buy a van. I don't think it'll fit into my garage very well. Yeah, the SVR was fun for doing it. I thought it was something a little bit different. I actually do use the Range Rovers to go and pick up stuff. I take stuff to the dump. I do stuff all the time. So yeah, but I can get a van, I guess. Maybe if they do an urban van, we might get one.
So what is your opinion on REITs? instead of actually individuals' properties as an investment?
So this actually ties into what I spoke about before. REITs, or whatever you want to call them, REITs, are basically the way that you invest with a small amount of money. So all you do is, like I said before, is you put a small amount of money in, you own a share of a land or a property, and that's the way to enter the market. So the difference between that and, again, to individual investments means that obviously you'll get a smaller profit out of it, but most importantly, your risk is a lot less if you're using these different vehicles to invest in.
How long have you been developing for, and what was your first project?
I've been developing for now 6 years, 7, 8 years nearly. So when I was about 18, 19 years old, first project that I did was a small flat. It was a 1-bedroom flat that I split the room into 2 bedrooms, so it created a second bedroom, and I sold. So that was a small investment, but it was my first project.
What age did you start?
So I started at 18, as I mentioned before, and when I started I did a small project, which I've obviously said, but it was 18 years old when I started.
Where are you from?
So I am from London, born and raised in the UK. Family heritage is obviously from India originally, and I have family based in Kenya as well.
What qualifications do you think you need?
So I think I mentioned this before on qualification side of things. You don't actually need a qualification, or you don't need a license or anything like that. But the key things that you can do, of course, like I mentioned, is becoming like a chartered surveyor. That would be something really good. Or you can do some courses that are linked to property and land ownership, land management. A couple of different courses like that are available, so they're really good to give you the idea. I didn't actually do them, but you can skip and save a lot of time if you do a course like that and learn some stuff before actually doing things practically.
What was your first car?
So my first car was a Ford Fiesta. I had a 1.4 Z-Tech Blue. I remember it was a black car, as you know, I like black cars, and it had like a blue stitching on the interior. Love that car, fantastic. A lot of people say, oh, you know, if your first car should be something crazy. When you start driving, you don't want a ridiculously powerful car. I think you need something that's kind of not got too much engine power, because a lot of people who are young tend to have accidents or have some issues if they do. So yeah, I love that car.
When are you going to do a trading video?
So I know a lot of people want me to do a trading video. I think I've mentioned this before. I'm going to do one, but I wanted to make it perfect because it's a very fine line on the trading side of things. There's only a certain amount of information that you can kind of say where people can understand things about trading. I don't want people to be going away and taking some information to go and just start trading and having some issues. So the video is actually nearly fully recorded, but there's just a last bit that we want to add to it to make it perfect. So that video is going to come out very soon. But yeah, I think that's about it. That all the questions, Carl?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thanks a lot for tuning in again. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there's going to be more questions, so I'm going to do another Q&A soon. It's going to be a general one as well. The next property video that's coming is going to give you an update on what's currently going on, and actually talking about the new project. And because I mentioned, you've got to have the next one planned. So we're going to go and check out some land where there could be some houses coming up. I will hopefully see you guys in the next video. I hope you check out Mayfair Pizza Company. The food here is incredible. Let me know if you do. Add me on Snapchat, Instagram for all those bits to keep up with things, and I'll see you in the next video.
Say that she a wanderlust, but she ain't seen the world so much to do at 21. You feel invincible, so hard to find someone to trust. She's still a daddy's girl, she wanna be an actress and a singer like Selena. Is she a movie buff?